Let's take a look at a practical API example. And here's an example of a catalog of an eShop, and we have two versions inside of it, Blade version and View version. And let's take a look how the data is loaded in one and another case. So for the Blade version, you can choose a category, you can go to a product, choose another category, and every time the page is reloaded. So as you can see, URL is changing, and if we open up the network of a browser console, we click, everything is reloading. We click back, everything is reloaded again. All the CSS, all the JPEG files, and the category itself with HTML. Now in View version, first time it loads everything, then URL doesn't change, and then this happens, /API/products with parameter of category 1. Then I click this, and as you can see, the page didn't change, and then only the API for category, and then all those JPEGs for the results of the product came in. If I click back, the images are already there, so there's only API call happening. And let's take a look what's inside of it. It's just the data of current page and data for the products. So this is how API works. Instead of loading full page with all the HTML, it loads only those parts that you need. Only the data, so the data for the products. So while working with API as a backend developer, you will actually deal with the data, not with the visual representation. Any HTML, CSS will be irrelevant. What you care about is the parameters for the API function and then what you get back. And for that, you need a convenient tool how to work with that data, and one of the most popular ones is Postman. So if we open a Postman, here's how it looks, and here's a similar API request for that project. So /categories returns this JSON data. List of fake categories and all the fields here. If we go to /products category 1, here's a bit more complicated set of data, but it's still the data. It doesn't load the HTML or CSS. It just loads the data and then attaches that to whatever page element that is. That is JavaScript part. So the API doesn't care about how it will look. It just cares about the data. So we return the products. Every product has a photo, so additional model here is also loaded. And you may hide or show more fields if you want. And this is what we will talk about in the future. And finally, if we take a look at the same example from Laravel code perspective, this is the result. So index method of product API controller returns product resource, which is Laravel way of returning the API. So it returns the array of products with categories and with tags. And it is all attached to the URL or the API endpoint, it is called, with this line. So API resource for product categories is attached to API controller, and which means that index method is the one to give the list of the products. So this is the brief overview of how API works in general. So how it loads the data, how it loads into the page. And now it's finally time to talk about how to build the API.